Good morning. So this week we're going to talk about all the updates and changes that are coming out with NOCTI and our handbook. So to start off, we've had some changes to the login method when you log into NOCTI. So in August, NOCTI sent out an email stating that you're utilizing a new protocol where you log in with your email address and you create a new password. And when you log into the system, it shows all the roles that you may have in that system. So if you're listed as a site coordinator and a instructor or anything like that, then you'll see those when you first log in. If you have not set up this new role or this new login, then you'll notice that when you log into the NOCTI screen, it'll pop up with a pop-up that says that they have a new protocol and that you'll have to go through the request your password process. Some additional new things that are coming out is we've got some new tests that are associated with different programs of studies. So you'll notice that we have a series of programs and that are all now moving to the workplace readiness test. And then there are some new tests such as the JROTC test. Now I want to let everyone know today that NOCTI let me know about the JROTC test is that there are the pre-tests are available and the study guides, but the post-tests aren't quite ready yet. So you can go ahead and order those if you're doing JROTC. I want to remind everyone about our timelines for this year. The pre-testing window is September 1st to November 30th, and then the post-test window is September 1st to May 30th, and that window is also the same window for the B&I reviews. Now comes the good part. So last week we uploaded the new revised handbook for this year. And so we're having some terminology changes and there's some other information that's new this year. So this year we're actually switching from benchmark to pretest, audit to post-test, and classroom to company. I'm sorry, I said that backward. Company to class. So you're going to start seeing that NOCTI is going to start rolling out these terminology changes over the next couple of months so that we're not going to be using benchmark anymore. It'll be pre-test, and instead of company, we're going to use class. Something new also this year is that we have removed the requirement that students must take a test upon completion of all 4 required courses for a program of study. So this year, students can test when the instructor, the county, or the school deems they're ready to take the NOCTI. So if you decide that your students can take the NOCTI after 2 classes, then you can order the test and test them then. If you feel that they need to take it after the 3rd or 4th test, then you can test them after the 3rd or 4th class. Totally up to you. With the pandemic last year, we removed the requirement that advisory board members would need to complete the B&I reviews. So with things getting back to normal slowly, this year the Department of Education has added that requirement. So you'll need to make sure that you have your advisory board members completing B&I reviews. With the handbook, we have 3 new resources that are available. Last year, we did announce the remote proctoring that NOCTI could provide for students who could not make it to the school to complete their NOCTI testing. This year, that remote proctoring is still available. It does cost $25 per student per test, and that would be at the cost of the county or the school if they need to implement a remote proctoring. New this year is the student locker and the work-based learning and classroom to career sections of the handbook. So the student locker is rolling out in the next week or so, and it's going to provide a place for students to access their reports, their college credit reports, the standards-based reporting, work-based learning time cards, and any certificates that are generated by the system so that they'll be able to retrieve that information on their own. The next piece is the work-based learning or classroom to career launch. So this is a statewide system that's been developed to track students' work-based learning activities. And as they're doing activities, they can enter a time card. And upon completion of the time cards or the activities, then they'll get a certificate that generates how much time and effort they put into that particular work-based learning activity. Next week's Tech Talk is all about classroom to career, so join us next week to get more information. So every year we get questions related to the calculations of the scores and the cut scores. So I want to remind everyone that workforce entry cut score is also referred as the criterion reference cut score. Both terminologies are used by NOCTI. These represent the individuals who are sufficiently competent to begin a position in a chosen field, beginning position in a chosen field. NOCTI updates this cut score twice a year. But West Virginia only uses the scores that are updated in July of each year. So in the reports and certificate section, there's a calculation or a spreadsheet or PDF that provides all of the details for the performance and written tests that NOCTI provide for each test. So that will get updated twice a year, but there may be a discrepancy between the scores, and that's because we only recognize the scores that are updated every July. That way we're not dealing with changes during the school year. The other one is the NOCTI, that NOCTI collaborates with the College Credit Recommendation Service to provide college credit for eligible assessments. So this is known as the college score, and they've determined that the cut score for that is 70%. And students who make 70% or above on qualifying post-test may receive college credit at the discretion of the Higher Education Institute. It's not available for every test, but it is available for most tests. And there we do have additional information if you're interested. The last one is the governor's workforce credential score. So this one is, it changes and fluctuates slightly every year because it's based on the top 10% of the students who have taken a specific test code in West Virginia any year that test was used to assess that program of study. So calculations are completed by taking the raw test scores data and sorting them by test code. So then they take at the top 10% of each score, each test code scores, and they take the lowest number in that 10% group to determine the cut score. Every program of study that uses that test will have that same governor's workforce cut score. For instance, the healthcare core is used across the massage therapy and
therapeutic services.
Yes, therapeutic services and diagnostic services are the two that I've looked at this week. They use the same test code. They use the healthcare core. So they'll have the same exact governor's workforce credential score. So like I said, it'll fluctuate. There are a couple extenuating circumstances. So for instance, this year we have the new JROTC test, and it doesn't have any past test codes or past tests from users. So it'll actually start off with a score of 70%, and that's aligned to the college credit cut score that NOCTI has determined. So for governor's workforce credential, you'd have to receive a 70% or better to get the governor's workforce credential score. The other thing to note is that the Career Integrated Experiential Learning Program of Study is not eligible for the governor's workforce credential.
Well, good morning, everybody. It's my turn to take the mic here for a minute. And first off, I'd like to start off by saying what a great job Veronica has done. And I know she has talked to you, probably most of the people on this call, helping them through NOCTI. And she has done a great job of revising the handbook this year. I want to encourage you to use that and pass along to your staff as well if they have any issues with anything going on in NOCTI. There's a lot of changes coming and a lot of new tools within the system, and I think that handbook will prove very helpful. One of the things that she's worked diligently on and will be released soon enough is in the handbook, there will be a whole how-to section, whether it's for a teacher or a student or a site coordinator. And in that section, not only this year will there be step-by-step directions, but there will also be videos. So she's done a great job of putting that all together, and it should be released to you pretty soon. So hats off to Veronica and all the hard work she's put into this, and I know she'll continue to do a great job with it. I wanted to talk just a little bit about some of the systematic differences this year and how NOCTI plays a role in those and how it all ties to WEVUS and the snap screen and everything else that goes along with that. So one of the big changes this year is in what we did, and I give Eric Hawkins credit for this. He came to me and said that, you know, administrators have to go and click send to NOCTI for every single one of their students. And the more of these components and tools we're putting into the system, the more students that'll need to send to NOCTI. So he had the idea that when you enroll a student in the CTE tab, it will send them to both NOCTI and into the snap screen. That way you don't have to make those extra clicks for all your students in the snap screen just to get them over to NOCTI. And then once they are in NOCTI, all your students should be in NOCTI. Then you can just assign them to the appropriate classes based on where you want to test them. And if you aren't testing them, then you just don't have to assign them to the class. So hats off to him as well for helping omit a step in the whole process with sending students to NOCTI. Now, that particular process, it has just been built and just been programmed, and we are working through a few kinks. Just like every new change, there's always a speed bump in the road, but I promise we will fly right over that speed bump. So if you happen to run into an issue with a duplicate student or a student that didn't go over, please contact either Doug or Eric, Doug Cipoletti or Eric Hawkins. I'll give you their personal cell phone numbers if you guys want them. They would love to be contacted all hours of the night about that, I'm sure. So no, if you have an issue, please contact them. They'll help work through it. They'll help get your students over, and soon enough we'll have all the bugs worked out, and there should be no more issues. So that's this year's process for getting over to NOCTI. If you attended Doug and Eric's session in the summer, you will also know that the snap screen is taking an overhaul. And they have done a great job. Both those gentlemen have done a great job of refining that process, and they work with Angie Gardner, who has a good vision for what it should look like. So the snap screen this year will also have when you enrolled that student and what the course requirements were during that particular year that you enrolled the student according to policy, which is going to be super helpful. And I know it's hard to just talk about, but it will be very helpful in the snap screen this year. And so one of the fundamental differences that's taken place in the snap screen, in the past, historically, you've always had to click not only send to NOCTI, but you had to mark whether a student was a completer or not. You will no longer have to do that. The system is going to automate who your completers are for you. So what's going to happen, and this is a big change, and we want to make sure that we're clear about the change in this so you'll understand how your completers are gathered this year. The system will first and foremost look at the post-test score. So once it sees that there's a post-test score, then it will go look at the credit and make sure that they have a minimum of 4 required courses. If they do, they'll go onto the completers table and they'll be completers. If they don't, they'll just remain in the snap screen until the following year. And what that means, and I'm going to reiterate a point Veronica made earlier, you have the jurisdiction to decide when a student tests now, post-tests. So if you choose, if you're a school that decides you want students to take 8 courses before they post-test, that's your decision. If you want them to take 6 courses, that's your decision. If you want them to take 3 courses, that's your decision. Or if you want to keep it the way it's always been and do the 4 courses, that's your decision. But the way the system's going to look at it is, do they have a NOCTI test? And that's going to be the red flag that you mark, yes, they're set to complete this year, possibly. And then it's going to go to credit. If the credit's sitting in that column, you're good to go. They're a completer. If it's not, that means you just tested them early, and they'll stay in the snap screen until the following year. So we think that this gives you a lot of flexibility. But with that, we need to make sure that you understand that you cannot pre-test unless it's the year you're going to post-test. So if I decide that I want to post-test after 6 courses, then that particular year that the 6th course takes place is the year that I can also give the pre-test. The state will cover 1 post-test. So if you make the decision to post-test after the 2nd course, that's your decision, no problem, but the state will not pay for another post-test after the 4th course. So it will just keep that historical record of that student's post-test, and that's the score that will remain with them. You'll remember that retakes are eligible. You are eligible for 1 retake per student. If they're trying to get a governor's workforce score or whatever the case may be, you're eligible for 1 retake, but it's on the cost of the school. And the other big difference within the snap screen is last year you had a button for virtual completer. The only real difference that a virtual completer was compared to a non-virtual completer is whether you had to take the NOCTI assessment. That has went away. So virtual completers last year really had nothing to do with whether a student was getting virtual instruction. A COVID mechanism for us to allow you some flexibility for students you couldn't get in the building. Since then, NOCTI has released this remote proctoring. So this year there will be no virtual completer button. If you want to be a completer, you need to have a minimum of 4 required courses and participate in the NOCTI assessment. So it is up to you to decide. If you have trouble testing, can you get students in the classroom to take that test at some point throughout the year as a post-test, or do you need to implement the remote proctoring, which is at the cost of the school? So those are some fundamental differences with how we will track completers this year. If you have any questions throughout the year, we're more than happy to take those. I can also give you Veronica's personal cell phone number. So next we have 2 more things I want to make sure you're aware of. Next week is the Classroom to Career CareerTech Talk, and we really encourage you to be a part of that. Classroom to Career is a big initiative that we're really excited about, and it's going to give students the opportunity to track all their service learning projects, their clinical hours, their educational observation hours, a way for them to track internships and apprenticeships. And it's a way for you as a school to be able to gather all this data and be able to have it on hand at the end of the year to report all the great partnerships that you have within your community. And so next week they'll talk all about the system, how you can have students track their hours, and how you can have teachers approve the hours at business partners. It's a whole big conglomerate of things. So make sure if you don't get a chance to tune into that, there will be a video that you can watch. So make sure you tune into that as well. And then there will be an upcoming training for NOCTI. Veronica and I had this conversation before this particular meeting, that this was a really high-level, overarching view of how NOCTI's system is this year and what some of the big differences are. But we will have a longer site coordinator training for whoever at your school takes care of NOCTI. So how to log in, how to order a test, how to look at blueprints or order study guides for teachers, how to work with your teachers and get them in the system, how to start a classroom. All that stuff will be covered. Basically, the stuff in the handbook will be covered at a later date. And once we do that, we'll send it out on the NOCTI listserv as well as the CTE directors listserv. So you will be notified of that. But today's topic was really more about what are the big changes in NOCTI? What are some of the new tests, like the JROTC test? We're really excited about that. That was actually written by the DoD, so it's right in line with what they're doing. So we just wanted you guys to be familiar with some of the bigger changes, how to track a student, how to get a student to NOCTI, what's going to be counted as a completer this year. And so that wraps up our conversation for this morning. And at this time, we will open it up for questions, comments, and/or concerns. Are we testing adults this year is the first question that came in. So adults, there is only one program of study in the ACE programs, the adult programs, or our ACE Advanced Career Education programs. There is only one program of study that actually utilizes NOCTI, and that's the electrical program. And that is because we have the agreement with the fire marshal that if you go through our programs and pass the NOCTI and go through all the requirements, you can sit for the journeyman's license. One of those requirements is passing the NOCTI assessment. So that is why that particular ACE adult program is eligible to take the NOCTI test, and the state pays for it, and that's why it's on there. If you as a school want to contract with NOCTI and test your adults because it's data you want and accountability you want, you are welcome to do that. NOCTI, they contract with multiple schools across our state outside of the state's actual system for different circumstances. Any other questions? My instructors would like to do the pre-test starting next week. Can I get a new handbook by then? I'll let Veronica handle that.
The handbook is already posted online, and the handbook, like I said, has several changes in it. We are working on separate pieces that are a how-to guide that will be incorporated with the handbook, and those are coming out within the next couple of weeks. They take a lot of time to do the screenshots, and then we're trying to pair up videos that match the step-by-step instructions, so it literally will follow the the how-to guide so that you have two mechanisms, whichever works best for you on how to access different things.
So Cheryl, that handbook is already ready. You can actually get to it. That's the moral of that story. But Veronica has a much more in-depth how-to instructions coming.
Yes.
But you just call us, Cheryl. If you need help, by golly, Veronica and I will be ready to help you. How do we get more information about college credit for a score of 70% or over?
Okay, so on NOCTI's website, under the credentials section, there is a place there that will give you step-by-step information about each test, what you can use the college credit to replace, and things like that. I'll be happy to send the link, share the link with everybody. Let me do this. I'm going to stop presenting for just a moment, and I'm going to share my screen instead, and I'm just going to show you the location. So give me just a moment while I share my screen.
As she's sharing that screen, in a nutshell, what happens with the college credit? Because we have these questions consistently. It's one of our most asked questions, college credit. One of the things that happens with NOCTI is they have a third-party vendor called the National College Credit Recommendation Service. And any test can be ran through that third-party vendor to see if it would qualify for college credit, and if that particular third-party vendor, how many credits would they recommend? And so it doesn't really have to do with the department. It doesn't have to do with NOCTI. It has to do with what the National College Credit Recommendation Service recommends. And then that's what gets posted based on a student scoring 70% or higher. We've got a lot of questions, and I'm going to go ahead and put it out here because I've been surprised that these haven't came up sooner, but we've had 3 or 4 this year already about students' college credit certificates having an expiration date. And one of the things that happens with these college credit certificates is that they might not be eligible for eternal college credit. So whenever that National College Credit Recommendation Service company reviews a test, there's a 3 to 5 year window on how long it's good for. And then what happens is they go back and they re-review it. If the review is of the same test that student took, and it still goes along, it's the same test, they'll just extend the expiration date when it expires. It'll just go another 3 to 5 years. If it's a brand new test that they're reviewing and NOCTI or whoever has replaced an old test with a new test, that expiration date will stand and will no longer be valid. So I don't know, a lot of it comes down to when they actually review a test, but the majority of time it'll just be extended for another 3 to 5 years unless they replace the test.
So you can find more information about which tests and what they can be used for college credit by going to the resource section and going to parents and student resources, and then scrolling down near the bottom. There's a section all about college credit recommendation, because this site also provides you with information if you want to transcribe the college credit with Excelsior College. There is a fee, I think it's $60. But then you're going to click on the NCCR website, and it will take you to the NCCR website, where it talks about the partnership between NOCTI and NCCRS, and it provides all kinds of details about the different tests. So if there's, I'm not sure off the top of my head. Let's just click here. This will provide you with the learning outcomes, the dates that the test length was done. It varies. It also provides what the credit recommendation is and how many credited hours that the recommendation is for.
Excellent. Veronica, do you mind to keep your sharing your screen and go to our website, go to the NOCTI Sway?
Yes, sir.
So Cheryl Moore had asked the question of where she can find some of these materials, like the handbook. And so we're gonna take you to the department's website, and it's under Technical and Adult Education. And if you go to either one, CTE Services and Support or Career Technical Education, both of those sites will have a button in the middle. This button, the CTE portal button, has all kinds of information on it. If you haven't seen it yet, it's a very important place to go. So you click on that particular button. Oh, I'm on the wrong place, aren't I? It has all kinds of information, but it doesn't have what you're looking for here, Cheryl. Go to Technical Assessment at the top. And when you get there, there's this NOCTI Sway section under NOCTI. And this particular sway has all the information, has the handbook, has the due dates, the deadlines, how long you can pre-test. It's got all the information on it. So this particular place is where you'll need to go for most anything to do with NOCTI. So when we create resources, we put them right here. So you can download the handbook. And one of the cool things about if you put the handbook on your computer like this, if you download the PDF, you can actually go to the table of contents. And if you see something you're wanting to look at because it's a pretty long document, you just click it and it takes you directly to that section of the handbook. So that is a very important resource as we move forward. Are there any other questions? Do you know of any West Virginia colleges that accept this credit, Heidi? Heidi, on that page that Veronica took us to on NCCRS website, there's actually a section that goes for, you can look at a map, you can click a state, and it has all the colleges that have signed an agreement with National College Recommendation Service. Good deal.